3 years ago, an indie animated series by Rooster Teeth started called RWBY. There was a lot of talk about it when it started, but not so much anymore until the end of Volume 3. And even though the end of Volume 3 got some talk going, it wasn't really by the people in the anime community. In fact, even though some people talked about it initially, it does seem like the anime community as a whole has kinda, dropped it. Which is sad, but I do understand it. To be honest, RWBY up until now has been kinda mediocre to decent for me. It's got your basic plot and characters, some of it's semi-original, but some of the characters however feel like bare-bones stereotypes with no real depth to even make them a well-executed stereotype. At least in the beginning anyway. Weiss in particular feels like she's slowly becoming a stronger character as time goes on. And the series is kind of vulnerable to some cringe, which, by the way, I'm like 5 months into when I first asked myself, what is cringe? And I'm still no closer to a legitimate theory about what it is exactly. I just cringe, I don't know why. Trying to define it is super hard. Somebody help me, please explain to me what cringe is. I swear to God, if someone says my videos, I'm fucking banning them. Anyway, I think I've been watching it more to see how a project of this nature goes, more than I've been watching it because I like it. And, like, it's still, like, decent, right? I don't hate my time watching it or anything. Just, if this was an actual anime, that's a whole other topic, then I probably would have just dropped it. But, hold on, because this mainly just refers to Volume 1. And I'm not being entirely fair here anyway. The couple of things I've always really liked about the series is the amazing choreography and the original concept of mixing guns with hand-to-hand weapons and using the recoil as a way of repositioning or empowering a strike. I think it's genius to use a side effect of a weapon for an entirely new purpose and advantage. There's some inherent irony going on there. But I think the choreography of RWBY had mostly been carrying it over its story elements up until now. And this is me ignoring animation quality and other technical stuff too.
Besides, with you hosting?
Wait, you didn't even unscrew that. Does it not have a top? Is alcohol just flying around your suit as you speak? But it's been fascinating to watch the series grow, because with each volume, it's felt as if RWBY has been taking leaps and strides. Now, I call Volume 1 mediocre to decent, but that's not to say it's like all average all round. RWBY seems to get these polarizing reactions from me. Sometimes I'm cringing at it and I don't like what I'm watching, but other times at certain story beats I'm like, that's kinda cool. And the fight scenes, well, they always just get a hey, this is awesome reaction for me. Volume 1 just felt like a lot of ups and downs. The main thing, other than cringe, that I felt particularly held Volume 1 back was melodrama and some kinda, I'm gonna say, dodgy character development. Okay, so what do I mean by this? So the first arc revolves around RWBY and Weiss, and, look, I wouldn't be surprised if Weiss turned out to be a faunus dog because of how she's acting. I'm calling her a bitch. So the RWBY and Weiss arc is, well, it's kinda petty, because their problems basically boil down to their problems with each other's immediate personalities. Weiss thinks RWBY acts like a child, which she kinda does, and Weiss is basically starting shit because she thinks she deserves to be the leader. The biggest problem with melodrama is that you have characters arguing over things that don't matter. The lack of maturity and wisdom tends to reflect badly on your characters, and they become less likable. And the moment you lose interest in the character is the moment you're not interested in what happens to them. Wait, does this guy have a fucking bust of himself? I mean, to each his own, but most guys your age use Viagra if they want to get hard. Now, I used to hate melodrama with a passion. I thought it was pointless and dumb, and there was no reason to run it over a normal developmental arc that didn't have petty bitching. And I mean, I guess I haven't really changed in that, but a certain animated series showed me that a melodrama arc can be just as strong as other types. And maybe I'll talk about that a bit later, eh? See, now I think there are some ways to get melodrama to work. You're basically aiming to get your engagements out of character depth or development stemming from that melodrama. The melodrama basically acts as a symptom of deeper, more important character problems. The problem with RWBY and Weiss is that the development of two people getting over their petty disagreements isn't particularly engaging when you compare it to something that's a lot more important to the characters. Don't get me wrong, the development parts are okay, and it's better than them doing some Monster of the Week bullshit or something like that. But it might not have been worth the bitchiness to get to the part where they're like, hey, I'm gonna stop being a bitch. And as I said, I think the way to improve that is to make sure the petty bitching comes from something that is much more core and important to the characters. In fact, Volume 1 actually has a good example of that. The last arc revolves around Blake and Weiss, and at first it seems like one's racist and the other's defending a corrupt organization, and it kind of feels like more of the same thing. But then, you find out that Blake's actually a faunus and an ex-member of the White Fang, and Weiss' family company has been at war with the White Fang, and that she's lost family as well as making her father and her home life difficult. And it was at that moment I felt a sudden appreciation for the characters. This conflict between Weiss and Blake was rational on both sides of the discussion, and it came from a place of importance for both characters. It looks like melodrama at first, but this appreciation for depth lifts the situation out of that pit and into something that feels mature, engaging, and doesn't reflect badly on the characters. That was what I was looking for with RWBY and Weiss. However, I did have complaints with how this arc handled its end. In my review of Boku no Pico, yes, for people who have never watched my stuff, you did hear that right, I talked about each development in a relationship needing a line of logic that gives reason for each character's change in state of mind, citing Beauty and the Beast as a great example. And technically, this was done with Blake and Weiss's arc, but Weiss's reasoning to coming around and realizing she was wrong was, I had time to think, which, look, it's okay, but I really would have preferred something less vague. The better I understand why and how a character changes, the stronger the development seems to come across. Hell, the RWBY and Weiss arc is a good example, because both talk to one of the professors and each of them get really solid life advice about what they're doing wrong and how they should go about improving. I'm just not cool with the melodrama in that arc, but with Blake and Weiss, I'm cool with the melodrama, I'm just not as cool with the actual development. It's sad, really. Combine the best parts of both these arcs, and I think Volume 1 would have been really solid in terms of story. Random trivia. Did you know each of the characters actually allude to a girl from a fairy tale? You got Little Red Riding Hood, Snow White, Beauty from Beauty and the Beast, and Goldilocks. Speaking of Jean arc, let's talk about his. Again, following the pattern of RWBY, there's a lot of ups and downs. There's things I love about Jean, and there's things I hate about Jean. Two of the biggest points I put down to character design are redeeming features and distinctiveness. What I love about Jean is the fact he forged his applications to get into Beacon. I think that's fascinating as a character concept and not something I've seen before. It made him unique and added some level of depth to him. In that respect, I think he's quite distinctive. But god, in Volume 1, he's not likable at all. I'm sorry, he's just derpy / cringy as fuck with no real redeeming qualities. His heart's in the right place, but no more than any other characters. And I really wish he was particularly nice or charitable or something. He develops into a much better character, yes, but I would have enjoyed myself a lot more if a development of this size happened with a character like RWBY or Yang, someone I already like. Now, I'm going to talk about Volume 2 in a bit, but just for reference, if ignoring plot holes and speaking theoretically, the dance scene with Jean happened before his developmental arc, I would have been way more into that. Jean choosing to make good on his joking bet and get in a dress to go to the dance and cheer up Pyrrha has got to be one of the best scenes in the series, and I love Jean for this. You get what I'm saying, right? Jean's arc, although fairly undistinctive, was good as a developmental arc, but at that point in the story, I just wasn't interested in hearing anything to do with him. But hey, going into Volume 2, he's mature, he's confident, he's still got a little distinctiveness and depth from being the kid who wanted to be a huntsman so bad he forged his applications, so I'm golden with him now. Honestly, the core engagement of Jean's arc wasn't even really Jean. Jean's arc starts setting up Pyrrha as an awesome character. She helps Jean train, she lifts him up and helps his confidence. She's just generally really nice to the derpy kid in a way that no one else was, and it's definitely one of the reasons she's a fan favorite character. There's a lot of reasons she's a fan favorite actually, and a lot of reasons I think she and Jean are the fan favorite ship. See, one of my problems with how relationships work in RWBY is that characters tend to fall in love without good reasons. This goes back to the line of logic in character development I was talking about before. Neptune and Weiss kinda make sense, because Neptune is just kinda...
You're gonna be cool, right? Dude. Good point.
But Blake and Sun is like, what, because they're both faunus? Rubbing in the whole animal mentality a bit, aren't we? On a total side note, I really like Sun's name. I just think it's really appropriate given that his abs are fucking melting. Anyway, I was always sort of iffy on Jean and Pyrrha's relationship, just cause like, Pyrrha, why would you like this guy? But then partway through Volume 2, you get this explanation that Pyrrha is so popular that she's seen as unattainable, and no one approaches her because of that. She fell in love with Jean because he didn't know who she was and was the first person to treat her like a normal person in years. And I don't know about you, but that was the point where I just fell in love with their relationship. It simultaneously gave a depth to a strong, but at this point fairly undistinctive character of Pyrrha, and also gave me a great understanding of their relationship and how it developed. Exactly what I was looking for. And to top it all off, the Jean in a dress scene was awesome. I gotta say it again, the cross-dressing Jean scene has got to be one of the best scenes in the series. Strong, redeeming moment, perfect reasoning to why, and helped to develop Pyrrha and Jean's relationship. In fact, Jean in general is just a lot more likable after his developments in Season 1. His dumbass cringe romantics are replaced with funny and dorky stuff.
I promise not to sing. I lied!
And at the dance, he's totally cool with the fact he got rejected by Weiss and also steps in to tell Neptune to get his shit together for rejecting said Weiss. He tends to just be a voice of reason and confidence in the whole thing. And have I not talked about Penny yet? Oh shit, let's talk about Penny. Penny might be one of the coolest characters to come out of the series.
Salutations!
And also to go out of the series. Holy shit, that's metal. No, like, that's actually metal. This fucking Pinocchio-ass, socially awkward robot is a character I absolutely love. But again, in Volume 1, she's both good and bad. She's a little annoying at first, and to be fair, if she wasn't annoying, she wouldn't also be hilarious. But I think most people had to get to the part where she breaks your expectation and goes, "Sup, I'm actually a killer robot," before they could actually like her and want to see more of her in the story. You know, now that I put it into words, even in Volume 1, she's definitely more good than bad, because she's funny and annoying half the time, but then she replaces both the funny and annoying halfway through for badass. So it's like only 1/3 annoying. Man, why am I applying mass to a subjective medium? Anyway, moving completely into Volume 2 now, it's a huge improvement. Characters move more naturally, Weiss in particular feels less weird in the story. Something I didn't mention about Volume 1, I feel like she starts off as a one-dimensional stuck-up bitchy character, but then sometimes broke that whole personality trait to do something out of character. Like, when Blake breaks her dark, mysterious persona to be embarrassed about having a smut novel, it works, because it's like a guilty pleasure. That side of her doesn't appear normally because it's something she'd want to hide. But with Weiss, she has a stuck-up bitchy side, and then like a happy, playful side that seems to come out randomly. Like, it seems like she has this appearance she wants to hold up, and that she's all prim and proper, but then kind of breaks it to show a different side of her, which is fine. I just need some more reasonings as to what situations she'll let herself reveal a more casual side of herself. This is definitely one of the more vaguer criticisms, and I'm not sure if I really nailed my feelings here, but I think that's why some of her lines feel kind of off to me. Either way, after the developments in Volume 1, she feels like she's a lot closer friends, and it seems more natural that she'd have these more casual moments popping up. She's also just generally less bitchy, and her character feels a lot more likable. In fact, from Volume 2 onwards, all forms of melodrama are completely gone.
Thank you!
Pancakes!
And it's instead replaced by some more normal character arcs, and while I'd still say things like the arc where Blake overworks herself isn't all that strong as an actual development, because it's more her overcoming a problem than something core about her character changing, we're still getting some nice little scenes that make sense, have solid logical reasoning, and are heartfelt and emotional. It also feels like these little arcs result in characters getting closer as friends, which seems a lot sweeter than having characters overcoming problems that stops them from becoming friends. Did I mention Volume 2 is way funnier? Volume 2 is way funnier.
Weishney asked you to the dance. What in the world could possibly keep you from
I can't dance.
The southeast quadrant of Vale is known for wild forests and deep caves.
Duck, what are you saying?
My dear, we're not just looking for an underground crime network. We're looking for an underground crime network.
In fact, the writing in general is just way stronger. There's some nice one-liners and clever moments, like when Roman pickpockets something from Emerald, and then at the end of the scene, Emerald pickpockets something from Roman, and is a, "Ha, no, fuck you." And near the end of the volume, at episode 9, you get this fantastic episode where almost all the main characters get asked why they chose to become huntresses, and all their answers give some insight to their characters. It's quite engaging. Oh, this scene is so sweet and beautiful, and wait, why are you sleeping in a skirt? Also, this scene is particularly fascinating for me, because this is like what I call a textbook example of character depth. I've got to analyze this scene later, because I've been looking for a less vague definition of character depth for a while now, and since this scene seems to have no other engagement other than that, it'll probably make it really easy for me to narrow things down and tell me more about what exactly character depth is and how to achieve it. Overall, I think if you can push yourself through Volume 1, Volume 2 of RWBY is definitely a solid part of the series and you'll enjoy your time with it. Oh yeah, don't forget that Volume 2 has well-choreographed food fights. That's fucking gold. It's both hilarious and fucking awesome to watch. I love it. Another one of the highlights from Volume 2. Although I'm really disappointed no one used the line, "Eat this." Other than that, that's all there is in Volume 2. The finale is nothing really to talk about. Great fight scenes as usual, but there was no emotional character shenanigans like Season 1. I suppose we caught a villain and Mystery introduced a couple of new characters, but overall this Season 2 finale didn't really achieve much. Unlike Season 3. Alright, this is the part where I get to talk about what I wanted to talk about. On that note, holy fucking shit! Disregarding the finale for a bit, you have Crow's introduction, who probably has the coolest introduction so far.
You realize you just destroyed Atlas military property.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then you have Winter, who has this interesting dynamic with Weiss, where she seems to care, but she's also really strict about it, and I think that's pretty cool. Crow's character design just blows every new character out of the water though. His attitude, his confidence, the fucking writing surrounding him.
He was drunk. He's always drunk.
Man, he's perfect. Now, Season 3 centered around a tournament, so there's a lot more fight scenes, and I mean, some of them are kinda meh. Her back is turned, you have a gun, this is the perfect opportunity to... Oh, come on, really? but others have amazing choreography. Anything with Mercury is guaranteed gold, and episode 5 has two of the coolest one-episode characters introduced purely for a single fight that I've ever seen. Maybe it's just because I'm a jazz fan, but both of them are super unique in personality and have their own style, and the way they fight is all based on their character design, and they're just so swag!
Look, now you're bottom heavy too.
Too bad all that money can't buy you skill.
I've never been so impressed by what is effectively a Monster of the Week episode. And then we start setting up things with Pyrrha and Nikos, and it's so cool to me that one of the side characters starts to play more of a major role in the story than the mains. I don't know what it is, I think it's just nice to see an even spread of important characters rather than focusing on only one. Then again, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that, just as long as you don't spend a lot of screen time with your uninteresting / unlikable characters. And I mean, Pyrrha's already had a lot of love throughout the series anyway, I suppose. At least we know her semblance. I mean, what even is RWBY's semblance?
Well, RWBY has her speed.
Speed? Your main character's power is fucking speed? All this time I thought it was making stuff disappear. Now, it kinda seems like Volume 3 is just gonna be like Volume 2 at first. Definitely less focus on emotional stuff, but a larger amount of focus on other types of engagements. And then, all of a sudden, shenanigans happen, and one of the main characters is painted to all the other characters as someone who maliciously broke a combatant's arm after a fight for no reason. And there's this slight twinge that maybe, just maybe, things aren't going to go the way your typical action-adventure type of story goes. Before you know it, the school's in ruins, Yang's lost an arm, Ozpin's missing, Penny's effectively dead, Pyrrha's definitely dead, Torchwick's dead, and Velvet's probably going to be expelled for plagiarism. Like, Jesus Christ! But I absolutely love what we're doing here. RWBY is taking some really big steps in order to shake up a pretty normal plot. It's hard to tell where exactly RWBY is going to go from here, and I love that. And then there's just the general engagements you get from character deaths. This is like the easiest way to get to my heart, by the way. Just take every character everyone's ever loved and just start fucking with them. I love this shit. Also, I know some people in the RWBY community have had problems with Pyrrha's death, and I'm gonna put that one as a strongly disagree, but my specific criticisms of those criticisms will have to come at a later time. I said a moment ago that Volume 3 had less emotional stuff, but as you get into the finale of Season 3, you do actually get that. Watching Yang struggle with whether or not she hurt someone unnecessarily, watching Pyrrha struggle with her fate as a maiden, and anything with Jean and Pyrrha is just as adorable as it was before. And then watching Yang just sit in her bed without an arm, just absolutely defeated, is just heartbreaking. God, I love it. We're finally getting serious and we're doing loads of big important things with the story, and wait, are those Grimm figures? Oh yeah, those monsters that oppress our entire race, kill our friends and family, and are just generally the sources of all evil in the world. That sounds like the perfect thing to put on my shelf. On a side note, I'm really glad we're losing the school setting in particular. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with a school setting. With enough creativity, you can do anything, but having a story centered around a school means that you are pushed to follow some level of order, or else there's no school. In a school setting, you can't really have strong tales of revenge or death or anything particularly crazy, because then, like, how would you have a school still running through all of that and still be logical? Again, if you're particularly clever, you can find some ways to make it work, but I do feel like a setting like that pushes a creator in certain story directions. But now everything has been torn down and all the characters are all over Remnant with no inclination to maintain any kind of status quo, and I am so pumped for that. Where the story can go is now just a lot more flexible. In fact, now that the school is gone, I have even less of an idea where RWBY is going to go. In fact, I think I'm going kind of crazy waiting.
And I am proud to run a school that accepts individuals from all walks of life. Rich, poor, human, faunus.
We've already seen humans and faunus, but I can't wait to find out about this. That they're foreshadowing. Oh hey, so I haven't even talked about the full Maiden episode. So, RWBY splits up its episodes with these World of Remnant minisodes that fill in on some world building and help give them time to animate new episodes. There was one in Season 3 with some kinda nice writing, but they're mostly uninteresting unless you particularly care to hear more about the world. But the Four Maidens episode was this own little contained story with its own characters. But what's weird is that it made me feel something and yet it didn't line up with any of my current theories. I really enjoyed this little thing, and I want to make an analysis video just for this little episode eventually with some new findings on it, because this little episode, it's fascinating to me. I love Volume 3. In fact, if I had any real complaint, it would only have been that they should have moved Weiss's summoning power-up thingy to deal with a Grimm when she and RWBY are trying to get to Pyrrha. because the way they ran it meant that you got to see Velvet's awesome power that she had been building up for a while now, and it was kind of like her moment to show how awesome she and her weapon is. But they cut it short and demeaned her moment by having her be beaten by the same thing she was beating with her power-up. So then Weiss could come in and finish it off with her power-up. I don't know, I wish these moments could have been split up so each of their characters could have had their moments in, like, full glory. It just feels like, hey, look how awesome Velvet is! Actually, wait, never mind, she's not that great. I'm also tempted to say I have a problem with the villains, because they do seem to lack depth, but a lot of them have unique personalities, like Torchwick, Neo, and Mercury, and if they're not unique, they're at least kinda badass. I feel like Cinder and probably Salim, although she's been only around for like 10 seconds, might need a bit of work, but other than that, wouldn't say anyone's a bad villain per se. Some people might also want me to talk about Torchwick actually. I'm pretty cool with Torchwick, but as for his death, actually I'm okay with that too. In fact, it's a really interesting scene in the way it's both good and bad at the same time. On one side, you anti-climax your villain, but on the other side, that anti-climax was part of what made it fucking hilarious. Honestly, they'll probably bring him back. I bet they could get away with it. You don't want to bring back protagonists too much from the dead, because people stop believing it and you lose the shock of the twist. But people expect villains to die, so there's no real shock to break by bringing them back constantly. Overall, I loved Volume 3. It blew all my expectations out of the water. The cringe, the melodrama is gone, the writing is now solid, the characters are now solid, and the plot has started to move in a direction I never expected. And I can honestly say many moments in the series have moved me. I don't know about you, but I cannot wait for Volume 4. My name is Unique Namosaurus, and for the first time, I finally feel like I can wholeheartedly say that I am a fan of RWBY.